Some creations don't just capture a moment in time, they completely define an entire era, and Acqua di Gio is definitely one of them. But how did this legendary fragrance actually come to be? Well, it's a fascinating story of a big-time vision, a classic formula, and one single kinda impossible ingredient that, believe me, changed everything. All right, let's get into it.
So this quote, it's from the master perfumer himself, Alberto Morealis, and it really gets to the heart of how he thinks about his craft. See, for him, it's not enough for a scent just to be pleasant. To be truly great, it needs that spark, something you didn't see coming. You're going to want to keep that idea in your head because it's the key to the whole story of Acqua di Gio.
All right, so our story, it doesn't start in some lab. Nope, it begins with a vision from a true fashion titan, Giorgio Armani. Armani was just deeply in love with this beautiful, rugged little Italian island called Pantelleria. It was his getaway. So he didn't just want another fragrance, he wanted to bottle the feeling of that place. You know, the sun, the volcanic rock, and most of all, the sea.
So what exactly did he say to Alberto Morealis? What was the big challenge he laid down?
He said he wanted something totally new. I mean, think about that for a second. Cologne has this super long, super classic history. Armani was basically asking him to reinvent the wheel, to create a fresh scent that felt completely different from anything that had ever come before. That's a pretty tall order, to say the least.
So how do you even begin when someone asks you to create something totally new? Well, a lot of the time you start with what you know. You build on a classic foundation.
Morealis started by sketching out a scent with a classic Mediterranean soul. He pulled in these bright, familiar notes like orange, neroli, and a bunch of other fresh elements. This is really the heart of those traditional colognes from Spain or Italy. It's a smell that just feels like sunshine and history.
And what did he get from this first try? Well, in Morealis' own words, it was very, very beautiful. There was no question it was a high-quality, amazing fragrance, but it was also familiar. It was a perfect version of a classic idea.
And this is really the central problem in our story. It was beautiful, for sure, but did it deliver on what Armani asked for? Was it totally new? Not quite. That innovative spark, that rare thing, it was still missing.
Okay, and this is where the story takes a really cool turn. The answer didn't come from a flower or a fruit. It came from a lab.
So here's the fundamental problem. Armani wanted to capture the sea, but you just can't distill the scent of seawater from nature. It's literally impossible. But science had found a workaround. Researchers had created a brand new synthetic molecule that could do the impossible. It smelled just like the sea. Now, this was not some gentle, floral thing. The molecule, which was discovered by a firm called Firmenich, was powerful. Morealis himself said it was very chemical and incredibly difficult to dominate. That means if you use just a drop too much, it could completely take over and ruin the whole fragrance. This was a classic high-risk, high-reward ingredient. Okay, so the perfumer has two things in his hands, a beautiful, classic cologne and this radical, tricky new molecule. What he did next? Well, it was pure creative genius.
So on one hand, you've got this perfect, sunny Mediterranean base. It's elegant, traditional, and just plain beautiful.
And then, Morealis took a massive risk. He added just a touch of that powerful, synthetic seawater molecule into his classic formula. It was this amazing fusion of old-school tradition and brand-new, cutting-edge science.
And the result? Whoa! That combination didn't just tweak the scent, it created something the world had never smelled before. It gave birth to what we now call the aquatic note. For the very first time, a perfume really truly captured that fresh, salty, mineral smell of the ocean. A whole new category in fragrance was born right there in that moment.
So the launch of Acqua di Gio wasn't just a success, it was like a shockwave that went through the entire world of perfume. And you don't have to take my word for it. The creator himself confirmed how important this was. Morealis is totally clear. Without that one specific, game-changing molecule, the perfume would have been nice, sure, but it never, ever would have become the icon that it is today. That innovation was everything.
And you really can't overstate its influence. Acqua di Gio didn't just sell millions of bottles. It set the trend for the next 20 years. It basically created the blueprint for all those fresh, clean, aquatic fragrances that completely dominated the market and defined what a whole generation thought a modern scent should be.
And that just leaves us with a really fascinating thought, doesn't it? The story of Acqua di Gio shows how the perfect mix of classic art and a single radical innovation can totally change an industry. It really makes you wonder, what other breakthroughs are out there just waiting for their one impossible ingredient to be found?